A sleepy Midwestern town where everyone knows your coffee order, your childhood nickname, and the secret you swore you'd take to the grave. Now imagine someone here to take a secret to the grave, but not their own. It's October 14th, 1987, 6:32 a.m. The air smells like damp leaves and diesel from the grain trucks rumbling down Main Street. Cheryll Spegal, 24 years old, strawberry blonde hair tucked under her favorite knitted scarf, locks her apartment door behind her. She waves to Mrs. Peabody, the widow next door who's already sipping tea on her porch. Gonna beat the crowds at the Piggly Wiggly, Cheryll calls out. Then she hums the chorus of Landslide, her song, the one she played on repeat while studying for nursing exams, and walks toward the corner store. 6 minutes later, she's gone. No scream, no struggle, just a half-empty grocery bag found 3 blocks away. A can of tomato soup, a bag of pretzels, and a paperback Agatha Christie novel with a receipt marking page 62. For 37 years, detectives have replayed that morning like a broken VHS tape. They've dusted doorknobs for prints, interviewed every soul in a 50-mile radius, and even consulted psychics. What's Cheryl's case file? It's just cold, frozen in time, like the last photo ever taken of her, smiling in a sunflower-patterned dress, unaware she'd become a ghost story. Yet in Harlan Springs, Indiana, you don't say her name. You whisper it. In the booth at Lou's Diner, where the old-timers argue over pancakes about whether the boyfriend did it. On Reddit threads littered with armchair detectives dissecting grainy police sketches. Even the local cops still keep a light on in the evidence room, just in case. But here's what keeps me up at night. How does someone vanish between a porch wave and a crosswalk? Was it bad luck? Bad timing? Or did Cheryl, a girl who loved mysteries, unwittingly step into one she couldn't solve? One question claws its way through every theory, every rumor, every lie. Who killed Cheryll Spegal? And why does this story feel less like a true crime and more like a riddle where the answer's been staring us in the face all along? Let's rewind to the day the universe shifted for Harlan Springs. October 14th, 1987. To understand Cheryl's vanishing, you need to understand her. This wasn't some background character in a crime drama. Cheryll Spegal was the girl who alphabetized the library's horror section for fun, who'd leave sticky notes and returned books with quotes like, page 109, bet you didn't see that twist coming. She'd just gotten accepted to nursing school, too. Not for the money, but because her mom had died of lupus when she was 15. I want to save the people no one else sees, she told her best friend, Linda, over milkshakes at the diner. But that morning, something was off. Cheryl's boyfriend, Mike, a mechanic with grease perpetually under his nails, told police they'd argued about eggs. She wanted scrambled, I wanted fried. Stupid, right? But here's the thing. Their neighbor heard shouting at 5:45 a.m. "You're lying to me," Cheryl yelled. Then a door slammed. When Mike reported her missing, he didn't cry. He shrugged. She'll turn up. But she didn't. Enter Roy Gibson, the long-haul trucker who became the linchpin of this case. Roy was parked at the abandoned train depot, a spot locals avoided after dark, to catch a nap. At 6:38 a.m., he claims he saw Cheryl, arms crossed, glaring at a burly man in a red flannel shirt. He looked like a hunter, camouflage hat, work boots. She kept pointing at his truck like she was mad as hell. Roy honked to break them up, and the man sped off in a rusted Ford pickup. But when police combed the county for red flannel, nothing. No truck, no hunter, no trace. Wait, it gets stranger. The depot was a 12-minute walk from Cheryl's apartment, but her grocery bag was found 3 blocks from home. So why was she at the tracks? Was she meeting someone? Following someone? And why argue over a truck? Maybe Roy's story holds the key, or maybe he's the key himself. After all, he'd been cited twice for drunk driving, had a CB radio nickname, Wrong Way Roy. But cops cleared him. His logbook proved he was in Nebraska the next day. Yet here's the kicker. The depot was torn down in 1992. The Ford pickup? Probably crushed into scrap. And Cheryl? She's frozen in time, forever 24, forever mid-hum of Landslide, forever one step away from solving her own mystery. Small towns are like locked diaries. Everyone pretends the pages are blank, but turn the key and suddenly, boom, you're drowning in secrets. And in Harlan Springs, Cheryl's vanishing wasn't just a tragedy. It was a spotlight, exposing foreshadows who might have wanted her gone. Let's meet them. First, the boyfriend, Mike Kovac. Picture a man built like a cinder block with a '69 Mustang he loved more than anything, except maybe control. The mechanic who'd fix your carburetor but accidentally slash your tires if you looked at Cheryl wrong. Police noted his knuckles were bruised the day she vanished. Fell off a jack, he said. But his alibi? A solo drive to a parts store that closed at 6 a.m. No receipts, no witnesses, just a man alone with his temper, and a girlfriend who dared to dream bigger than Harlan Springs. Next, the trucker, Roy Wrongway Gibson, a drifter with a CB radio and a habit of getting lost on back roads. He swore he saw Cheryl arguing with Red Flannel Man at the depot. But during questioning, first he said the man had a beard, then no beard, then maybe a mustache. Cops wrote him off as a lonely drunk spinning tall tales until they found his rig's logbook. The day after Cheryl vanished, Roy was hauling soybeans to Nebraska. But here's the kicker. His trailer was empty when he left Harlan Springs. What was he really transporting that night? The librarian, Dolores Hodge, 52 years old, cat-eye glasses, and a reputation for shushing kids who lingered too long in the true crime aisle. She and Cheryl worked side by side for 3 years. But 2 weeks after the disappearance, Dolores quit, packed up her desk in the middle of the night, and moved to Florida. No goodbye. Just a cryptic note left in Cheryl's employee file. Ask about the overdue books. Was it a clue, a threat, or the ramblings of a woman who'd spent too long shelving Stephen King? Finally, the ghost. Red Flannel Man Roy's phantom. The enigma who vanished like smoke. Some say he was a poacher from the next county over. Others swear he's a local legend, a Vietnam vet who snapped after the war. But in 1993, a waitress at a truck stop 200 miles away called Tip Line Shaking served a guy in red flannel who bragged about taking care of a problem in Harlan Springs. By the time cops arrived, the man was gone. All that remained was a napkin with a doodle of a sunflower, Cheryl's favorite flower. Coincidence? Or a killer's sick souvenir? But here's the twist. These 4 aren't just suspects. They're mirrors. Reflect on their stories too long, and you start seeing your own face in the glass. Because in a town this small, everyone's guilty of something. The question is, who's guilty of murder? 10 years. That's how long it took for the truth, or a shadow of it, to crawl out of the dark. October 14th, 1997. A decade to the day since Cheryl Spegal vanished, a plain white envelope slid through the mail slot of the Harlan Springs Police Department. No stamp, no postmark, just 3 words scribbled in shaky block letters. Open alone. Now, inside, a single sheet of lined notebook paper, torn unevenly at the edges. 5 words written in blue ballpoint ink. She trusted the wrong person. That's it. No signature, no threats, no demands. Just a sentence that felt less like a clue and more like a grenade with the pin pulled. The officer who found it, a rookie named Tim Bellamy, said the paper smelled faintly of vanilla. Cheryl's signature scent, according to her best friend Linda. She'd dab it behind her ears every morning like clockwork, Linda told reporters in '87. Coincidence? Or a killer's cruel inside joke? Let's freeze here, because this letter didn't just change the case, it splintered it. Suddenly, every theory, every suspect, every alibi had to be seen through this new, fractured lens. Was it a confession? A taunt? Or something far stranger? First, the forensics. No fingerprints. No DNA. Not even a stray eyelash stuck to the cheap glue on the envelope. The paper? A generic brand sold at every dime store from Ohio to Oregon. Ink? A Bic Cristal pen, the kind half the town owned. But the handwriting, that's where things got twisted. The police compared the note to samples from all 4 suspects. Mike's truck maintenance logs, all caps, jagged and angry. Roy's drunken scrawl in his CB radio handbook. Dolores' prim cursive from library checkout cards. Even Red Flannel Man's hypothetical writing, based on the sunflower doodle. None matched. But then, a junior detective named Carla Ruiz had a dark hunch. She pulled Cheryl's diary from the evidence locker, a pink leather journal with a broken clasp, filled with grocery lists, nursing school notes, and snippets of poetry. On page 17, she'd written, "Mom always said trust is a currency. Spend it wisely." And there, in the looping Y of currency, the slanted T in trust. It was identical to the letter. Cue the existential dread. Did Cheryl write this note herself? And if so, when? 10 years after she vanished? Or had she penned it before her disappearance, leaving it for someone to mail later? Was this proof she'd staged her own death? A final message from beyond the grave? Or something far more unsettling? A forgery by someone who'd studied her diary like a script? Let's dissect the nightmare. Theory 1, the escape. Suppose Cheryl did run away. She just enrolled in nursing school, but what if the pressure cracked her? What if she faked her death, changed her name, and mailed the letter a decade later to torment the town that failed her? But here's the flaw. Cheryl loved her life. She'd adopted a stray cat, Muffin, 2 weeks before vanishing. She'd just planted tulip bulbs in her mom's old garden. This wasn't a girl on the edge. She was rooted. Theory 2, the copycat. Someone close to Cheryl, someone with access to her diary, meticulously replicated her handwriting. But who? Mike claimed he'd never read her chick scribbles. Dolores had quit and fled. Roy? Doubtful. The man spelled depot as depot in his police statement. Unless the librarian? Dolores knew Cheryl's habits, her scent, her handwriting. Was the note a guilt-stricken cry from a woman who'd helped cover up a crime? Theory 3, the killer's game. Imagine this. The murderer kept Cheryl's diary as a trophy. For 10 years, they practiced her handwriting, waiting for the perfect moment to resurrect the case and their own thrill. The vanilla? A relic from Cheryl's apartment, preserved like a specimen. The date? A twisted anniversary gift. But why risk it? Ego? Boredom? Or maybe the killer was dying, and this was their deathbed confession, without confessing at all. But the darkest theory? Theory 4, the wrong person. The note isn't about the killer, it's about us. She trusted the wrong person. What if Cheryl's killer wasn't a stranger, a boyfriend, or a drifter, but someone we'd never suspect? The sweet old neighbor, Mrs. Peabody, who waved goodbye that morning, the high school friend who borrowed her Agatha Christie novel and never returned it, or the police chief himself, who lost key evidence in '89. Here's the kicker. In 2001, a retired detective leaked that the envelope had a nearly invisible coffee stain in one corner. Tests revealed it was Decoff, the same brand Cheryl's father drank every morning until his death in '93. But her dad had an ironclad alibi. He'd been in a coma at St. Luke's Hospital the day she vanished. Unless he wasn't. The letter's legacy? A paradox. It gave the case new life, but drowned the truth in deeper shadows. The police reopened the investigation, re-interviewed all 4 suspects, even dug up the old train depot's rubble. Nothing. Mike died in a bar fight in 2003. Roy's rig crashed into a ravine in '99. No body recovered. Dolores? She's 83 now, living in a Tampa retirement home, and still refuses to say the word Harlan. As for the note, it's locked in a federal evidence vault, analyzed by graphologists, psychologists, and even a NASA cryptographer in 2017. Their conclusion? Inconclusive. But here's what keeps me up at night. That letter worked. It made us doubt everything. The facts, the faces, even Cheryl herself. Because the scariest part of any mystery isn't the monster in the dark. It's realizing the monster might be holding the flashlight. Let's play a game. You're sitting in a dusty archive room, Cheryl's case file splayed open in front of you. Every page whispers a different story. Every photo dares you to choose a side. But be careful. Once you pick a theory, it's hard to unsee the ghosts it conjures. So let's dive into the rabbit hole and pray we don't lose ourselves on the way down. Theory 1. The boyfriend did it. Start with the obvious. Mike Kovac, Cheryl's boyfriend, the hot-headed mechanic with grease under his nails and a jealousy streak wider than the Indiana state line. Let's dissect this. The morning Cheryl vanished, Mike told cops they'd argued over breakfast. But Mrs. Peabody, the neighbor, heard Cheryl scream, "You're lying to me," at 5:45 a.m. About what? Mike's alibi was a solo drive to a parts store that didn't open until 7. His hands, bruised. His eyes, bloodshot. When police asked why he didn't report Cheryl missing for 8 hours, he shrugged. Thought she was sulking at Linda's. But here's the kicker. 3 days before she vanished, Cheryl withdrew $1,200 from her nursing school fund, cash she'd saved waitressing. The withdrawal slip, signed in Mike's blocky handwriting. She wanted to surprise me, he claimed. With what? A new toolbox? A ring? Or was Mike bleeding her dry? Fast forward to 1992. Mike's cousin, a bouncer at a dive bar in Louisville, told a reporter. Mike bragged about knowing where bodies get buried, laughed when I asked if he meant Cheryl. But without a body, without a crime scene, Mike skated free. Died in 2003, stabbed in a bar fight over a $20 pool bet. His last words? Tell Cheryl. Tell her what? We'll never know. The problem? No physical evidence ties Mike to her disappearance. No blood in his Mustang. No hair, no fibers, no shovel missing from his garage. Just a town that still side-eyes his grave. Theory 2, small-town conspiracy. Now, let's get uncomfortable. Harlan Springs has 1,203 residents. On paper, it's all church potlucks and Friday night football. But peel back the veneer, and this town's got teeth. What if Cheryl's disappearance wasn't one killer's crime, but a collective secret? Let's connect the dots. The librarian, Dolores, quit 2 weeks after Cheryl vanished, moved to Florida. But in 2005, a hurricane flooded her storage unit, spilling out boxes of old library records. Inside, a checkout card dated October 12, 1987, 2 days before Cheryl vanished, for a book titled Forensic Toxicology, A Beginner's Guide. Checked out to Cheryl Spegal. Did Dolores help her research something dangerous? Or did Cheryl stumble onto a secret someone else wanted buried? The deputy, Earl Jenkins, the cop who first responded to Mike's missing person report. He retired in 1990, bought a fishing cabin upstate. But his daughter found a locked tackle box in his attic after he died. Inside, a red flannel scrap, crusted with something dark. Earl never mentioned it. The family burned it. Why? The diner owner, Lou, who served Cheryl coffee every morning, closed his diner in 1995, claimed it was bad luck. But a regular swears he saw Lou burying something in the woods behind the dumpsters the night Cheryl disappeared. A dog's grave, Lou said. But Cheryl's cat Muffin? She stayed indoors. The problem? Conspiracies are messy. They require too many silent mouths. But in Harlan Springs, silence is a language everyone speaks fluently. Theory 3, Cheryl's escape. Here's the radical take. What if Cheryl isn't dead? What if the girl who loved Agatha Christie plotted the ultimate disappearing act? Let's pretend. She's 24, stuck in a town where her mom's ghost haunts every street lamp. Her boyfriend's a possessive brute. Nursing school's a mountain of debt, so she stages a vanishing. Withdraws her savings, plants the grocery bag, and slips onto Roy's truck. Changes her name, starts fresh in California or Maine. The letter? A decade later flex to prove she outsmarted them all. But here's why this theory crumbles, Muffin. Cheryl's cat wasn't just a pet, it was her shadow. A scrawny tabby she'd rescued from a drainage ditch, fed with an eyedropper until it could purr. The morning she vanished, Muffin's bowl was full. But according to Linda, the cat refused to eat for 6 days. Hid under Cheryl's bed, wailing like a banshee. Animals know. They feel abandonment. If Cheryl had planned to leave, would she really ditch the one creature who loved her unconditionally? Unless, what if Muffin's grief wasn't from loss, but guilt? Far-fetched? Maybe. But in 2019, a veterinarian studied cases where pets acted strangely after owners' deaths. One dog guarded its owner's grave for weeks. A parrot screamed, "No, no," for months after a murder. Could Muffin have witnessed something that broke her feline mind? A struggle? A scream? A secret she couldn't meow? Theory 4, the wrong person. Let's spiral deeper. What if the answer's been hiding in plain sight? Let's talk about Linda, Cheryl's best friend, the one person who seemed above suspicion. Linda was the een to Cheryl's Yang, the town bad girl with a Marlboro habit and a knack for dating married men. She's the one who pushed Cheryl to apply to nursing school, the one who drove her to Fleetwood Mac concerts, the one who found muffins starving under Cheryl's bed. But here's the itch you can't scratch. Linda inherited Cheryl's diary, the pink leather one with the broken clasp. She donated it to police 2 weeks after the disappearance. Why the delay? And why, in 2001, did Linda sell the rights to Cheryl's story to a true crime podcaster, then back out last minute? It didn't feel right, she said. Or what about Mrs. Peabody, the sweet old neighbor who waved to Cheryl that morning? She died in 2008. Her family found a shoebox of Cheryl's belongings in her attic: hair ribbons, a library card, and a faded photo of Cheryl's mom. Written on the back, "Forgive me." The problem: the more you dig, the more suspects you unearth. Because in a town this small, everyone's a little guilty of something. But murder? That's a sin that leaves stains. The unlikeliest theory of all. Now, let's get really uncomfortable. What if Cheryl's killer isn't a person, but the town itself? Harlan Springs is a place where dreams go to die. Where the factory closed in '84, the church youth group disbanded in '91, and the only growth industry is regret. Cheryl wanted out. Nursing school was her golden ticket. But what if the town couldn't let her go? What if it punished her for daring to leave? Think about it: the vanished trucker, Roy; the missing librarian, Dolores; the deputy who burned evidence, Earl; the diner owner who buried secrets, Lou; even the cat who took trauma to the grave. Cheryl's story isn't about one victim. It's about a community rotting from the inside, devouring its brightest lights to keep the darkness at bay. Her case isn't cold, it's contagious. And every time we theorize, every time we whisper her name, we catch the fever too. Some tragedies don't end with a body. They don't fade with headlines or dissolve into cold case files. They seep into the soil. They poison the roots. And long after the world moves on, the rot remains. Cheryl Spegal's story isn't just about a girl who vanished. It's about what happens to the people left behind when the lights go out and never come back on. Let's start with the mother, Beverly Spegal, a woman who baked apple pies for the church bake sale every Sunday and kept Cheryl's childhood pigtails pressed in a Bible. 6 months after her daughter disappeared, Beverly collapsed in the cereal aisle of the Piggly Wiggly, clutching a box of Cheryl's favorite Frosted Flakes. The autopsy said heart attack. The town knew better. Grief isn't a feeling, it's a slow-acting venom. Her tombstone, right beside her husband's, reads, "We'll find you in heaven." But what if heaven's just another unanswered question? Then there's the library, the red brick building on Oak Street where Cheryl stamped due dates and tucked book recommendations into strangers' pockets. After she vanished, kids stopped coming. The shelves grew dusty. The town council voted to shut it down in 1991, claiming budget cuts. But the real reason? Every time someone walked in, they swore they heard humming. Landslide? Of course. The building's a hardware store now. They sell padlocks and shovels. And the train tracks, those rusted veins that once connected Harlan Springs to the world. The ones where Roy claimed he saw Cheryl arguing with Red Flannel Man ripped up in 1999, replaced by a bike path. But locals avoid it after dark. They say the gravel still whispers. Not words, just a tune. A Fleetwood Mac riff carried on the wind. But here's the thing about small towns: they don't forget. They preserve. In 2018, a high schooler restoring a '78 Chevy Impala found a Polaroid taped under the passenger seat. Cheryl laughing mid-sip of a Coke, wearing that sunflower dress. The owner, a retired teacher who'd bought the car from Mike Kovac's junkyard in '93. He'd never noticed the photo. Thought it was trash, he said. In the attic of the old diner, behind a stack of Lou's whiskey bottles, there's a chalkboard from 1987. On it, half erased: Cheryl's shift, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. No one's touched it, not even the rats. And Muffin, the cat who refused to eat? She lived 14 more years, adopted by Linda. Died in 2001, curled up on Cheryl's childhood blanket. Linda buried her in the tulip garden Cheryl planted. Today, those tulips bloom neon orange every spring. Weird, right? Linda says, Cheryl hated orange, but the legacy isn't just in objects. It's in the silences. The way Roy's daughter hesitates for 3 full seconds when asked about her father's trucking routes. The way Dolores nursing home nurses find her scribbling overdue books on napkins. The way Mike's grave, littered with beer cans and cigarette butts, stays suspiciously weed-free. Someone tends to it. Someone who won't let go. And then there are the newcomers. The ones who move to Harlan Springs for the cheap rent and quiet streets. They sense it. The cashier at the gas station who jokes, "This place feels heavy." The kids who dare each other to sprint down Cheryl's old block at midnight. Even the stray dogs that circle the bike path, noses to the ground like they're tracking a ghost. But why does this matter? Because Cheryl's story is a cracked mirror. Look into it, and you don't just see her. You see every small town where a girl walked out the door and became a cautionary tale. Every mother who buried a child without a casket. Every best friend who wonders, was there a sign I missed? It's also a warning about the stories we tell ourselves to sleep at night. The ones where monsters are strangers in red flannel, not boyfriends or librarians or the sweet old lady next door. The ones where justice is a switchblade in a bar fight, not a truth too ugly to dig up. But here's the flicker of hope. In 2023, a TikTok video went viral. A user named Cold Case Crusader posted a 10-second clip of a man's voice, muffled, saying, "I was there. I saw the truck. The location tag? Harlan Springs." The account vanished 2 days later. Was it a hoax? A confession? Or proof that secrets, no matter how deep, eventually surface? Cheryl's legacy isn't a question, it's an echo. A single note from Landslide that won't fade. A name scribbled in library books now sitting in landfills. A mother's unmarked grave. A town that can't decide if it's haunted by Cheryl or by itself. So why does this case matter? Because it's not about solving a mystery anymore. It's about asking ourselves, what happens to a community that chooses silence over truth? And how many more Cheryls will it take before we realize some puzzles aren't meant to stay unsolved? So, who killed Cheryl Spegal? Was it someone she loved? A face she trusted as she tied her scarf that morning, not knowing it'd be the last time? Was it a stranger in a red flannel shirt, dissolving into the fog like a bad dream? Or is the answer simpler? A detail we've all glossed over. A name we've mispronounced. A lie we believed because the truth was too heavy to carry. Maybe it's Mike, the boyfriend who died with secrets on his breath. Maybe it's Dolores, the librarian who fled to Florida but never outran her guilt. Maybe it's the town itself, the quiet streets, the rusted train tracks, the lies baked into its DNA. Or maybe it's you. Not you, but the idea of you. The person watching this right now, with a theory itching in the back of your mind. The one who notices the coffee stain on the letter, the dates that don't add up, the cat who refused to eat. The one who thinks, wait, what if? Cheryl's case isn't closed. It's a door left slightly ajar, a flicker of light in a boarded-up window. And until someone turns that knob, walks through, and says enough, tell us the truth, her story stays trapped in the shadows. So stay curious, stay reckless. And if you think you've got the answer, shout it into the void, drop it in the comments, tag a friend, debate a stranger. Because sometimes the right theory in the wrong hands is all it takes to crack a case wide open. Until next time, keep digging.